I learned to play that as a flute trick when I was a kid, but little did I realize at the time that singing while you play is actually a really great technique. Let me tell you another personal story from my own background about how I learned this. When I was living in New York, there were so many auditions that would come through the city and through Juilliard because there were so many great players there. There were places like the Hong Kong Philharmonic or the Honolulu Symphony that would come to New York. And so I got to do a lot of auditions all the time. And there was one day that I went to do a summer festival audition, and they showed me into a warm-up room. And when I got to the room, there was a woman in there already who was probably about the age I am right now. I was about 22 or so. She was warming up with some long tones, and she was singing and doing her long tones at the same time. And so I was doing my own warm-ups, but I kind of had like an ear out for her. And then she started to do harmonic series, but while she was singing, so kind of like, and it sounded really big and buzzy. And then she started to play some melodies and sing along with the melodies. And yeah, I'm in my audition mode, I'm getting ready for my own audition, and I'm thinking, what exactly is going on over there? But I'm not paying too much attention. And then she started to play normally. She started to play some of the excerpts for the audition we were about to do. And she had one of the most beautiful flute sounds I had ever heard. I was instantly humbled on the spot because I thought, here I've sort of been judging her, but she plays so beautifully. And I had heard a little bit before then about singing and playing as a warm-up exercise, but I'd never really done it. And so the most important thing I got out of the audition that day was that I went home and I started to sing and play, and it did definitely improve the resonance in my sound. Before we go further, I want to say a quick note about how to sing and play at the same time, because some people kind of instantly figure it out and other people have a hard time. You have to think of the airstream and the singing as two independent processes. So if you can get your voice going, ah, and then you can also, as you would through a flute, you need to be able to do those both independently. It's kind of like, you know, pat your head, rub your tummy, or perhaps like this, that you need independent motion. And again, it might help if you want to visualize the airstream a little more to blow through a straw, and let your voice pick whatever note is really comfortable. Usually a note that's towards the bottom of your range. For me, that feels nice and easy, low enough that we have as little possible vocal cord tension as we can get. So yeah, if you can use different sizes straws. That's going to use a different amount of air. Be sure too, whether you're blowing hard or gently, you don't have to correspondingly use your voice more or less. When you blow a lot, you don't want to get you want it to stay really relaxed. So I can blow hard, but I'm still just keeping my vocal cords relaxed. When you first start to sing and play on your flute, it doesn't even really matter that you try to match pitch at all. Just get your vocal cords to move at a place where they feel good. So if you're... But ultimately, for most exercises that we do, singing and playing, tone studies and that kind of thing, we want to be singing either in unison or octaves. So I'm just singing a D. So ultimately, I want to sing and play the same pitch and be able to move around and match pitch. It might feel frustrating if you can sing on pitch, but when you play, you can't sing and play and keep your voice on pitch. But it's just another ear training feat, and it's learning to coordinate those two separate processes of singing and playing at the same time. And right there, we just stumbled upon the reason why it works so well to practice this using Taffanel and Gobert number 1. If you've ever sung in a choir at all, I bet they've had you use some variety of this da 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 dum. Maybe you've sung like zing 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 za za za, something like that. It's very vocally friendly, it's very flutistically friendly, and you can just combine the two. Yes, it's good for every single flute player to be able to sing and play. Here's why. If you're trying to sing and play and you can't get your vocal cords to move, that usually means that your throat is tight. You have to relax and open your throat so that your vocal cords can vibrate. And in doing that, you are accomplishing all the goals that we always have as flute players anyway. We want to have our throats wide open. We want to have access to the same cavities in your head that vocalists use. So if you open your throat enough that your vocal cords will respond, your tongue usually goes down, your soft palate goes up, and we access all of these resonators in our head that singers use as well. This brings us to the 3 ways that I like to practice Taffanel and Gobert number 1. The first way is singing and playing either the same pitch, or if your voice is too low for that, you can sing an octave lower, but you want to maintain unisons and octaves because there is a simple acoustic relationship that we want to use and get the flute to resonate through that acoustic relationship. Because when I play and I sing in unison, I get a lot of vibration going on in my flute. It's really buzzing. I'm not trying to be ugly, but I'm not trying to be pretty. The goal is to get the flute really responding and really buzzing. And I can tell you, I feel so much more vibration in my fingers through these keys when I'm singing and playing than when I'm only playing. And that's the goal, because I believe that this is not only good for the flute player, but it's also good for the flute, because the flute is responding and it's just buzzing and vibrating. And I really believe it kind of loosens the flute up, that then when you play it normally, it's more responsive, it vibrates more. The second way that I like to practice Taffanel and Gobert number 1 while singing is to sing and finger the same pitches that I'm singing, but not actually blow tone through my flute. The flute is really acting like a microphone. It's amplifying what I'm doing. If I take the flute away, hopefully you can hear that my voice is a lot softer sounding suddenly. Because the flute is resonating and responding at the same pitch. Now, if I finger different pitches, it doesn't work. So here's what I like to do with this step. For me, this is the most important step of this whole process, and it's just something I figured out over the years of doing this. When you're singing this way and fingering but not actually playing, you can manipulate the sound a lot depending on how you shape your oral cavity. If I have a really shallow, like I'm going to say E into the flute, I get almost nothing. But if I open up, hopefully you can hear that progressively I get more and more response from the flute. So I found this kind of ooh syllable, and that's where I started to get a lot more response from the flute. So then what I want to do is find that position and instantly go to playing normally, but not change my mouth. Keep that oral cavity space that I found, keep that resonance chamber right there, and make it give you a more beautiful sound. And I don't care how good good of a tone day I'm having before I go through these steps, I always sound better after I've fooled around finding this perfect oral cavity that gives me the most possible response out of the flute. It's like it lines up everything about how I'm using my throat and my mouth and my flute as a resonator. And I hope you notice that all the same goals that we have as flute players are served here. We're always talking about having our jaw open, having a lot of space between our teeth, having our tongue low and down and our soft palate up. And this just confirms that the more I do those things while I sing and finger the corresponding pitch, I get more and more response out of my flute. And you can instantly hear that you're making progress when you go the right direction. I've really evolved the way that I use this exercise over the years, but I have to give a big hat tip to two flute players. One is Carol Wincenc, because when I was at Juilliard and I started to talk to her about singing and playing, she recommended that I practice on TNG number 1. And the other person is Robert Dick. He is like the brilliant, unique grandfather of American extended technique flute playing. I do find that this helps my lowest register the most, but the benefits definitely extend up into the higher octaves as well. So you just want to sing now in octaves. So I would stay an octave or 2 or 3 lower. Because of the simple acoustic relationship that we have between, say, A440 and A220, the flute will still be very responsive and resonate to your voice if you're singing in octaves. Don't know if you can hear, it's getting stormy and windy outside. But by now you should be getting the idea, which is correct, that the main reason I value singing and playing is that it's a really honestly great method to improve your traditional flute sound. But there are a lot of composers these days who use it as an extended technique in their music. For instance, there's a piece that I recorded last week called Taringa by Michael Kalkuhun, and he asks for you to sing and play. And I want to show you those ways so that if you heard that piece and you're curious or you want to know more about flute and extended techniques, this will just open a little bit of a window into what's going on there. One thing he asks for is that you sing and play in octaves. For me, I add it 2 octaves lower. If I were a guy, I'd go 3 or possibly even 4 if you're really a bass. Now, right before that, he asks for something which is more unusual. He asks for you to play going up a scale, while at the same time, you're singing going down a scale, roughly. They're not traditional scales. And I actually do try to sing exactly the pitches that he notated, rather than I could just sort of do a vocal gliss down. The other way that he asks you to use your voice is by creating a harmonics chord. So for instance here, that's what I'm playing, and then I sing and play that D flat. But then, while I'm playing the D flat, I allow the chord to come out of that. So you're getting kind of a spray of harmonic pitches. I hope what we've done today is useful. If you take it seriously and you work on it, trust me, it will be useful. If it feels too unconventional, too out of the box, step outside the box. It will be so good for you.